Most people feel mentally tired, not because life is always difficult, but because the mind is constantly reacting to opinions, to news, to small problems, to situations that don't really matter. Everything feels important. Everything feels urgent. And without noticing, the mind gets involved in everything. It responds, it reacts, it keeps engaging, and over time, this creates exhaustion, not physical exhaustion, mental exhaustion, because the mind never really stops. Even when nothing is happening, it continues, thinking, replaying, reacting. And this creates a constant sense of pressure because the mind doesn't stop on its own. It keeps going. One thought leads to another. One reaction creates the next. And even when nothing is happening, the mind continues to simulate activity. It creates problems. It replays situations. It anticipates outcomes that may never happen. And all of this consumes attention. And most of the time, this happens without awareness. You don't notice the moment attention shifts. It happens quickly. Something appears, and the mind follows. And by the time you realize it, you are already involved, already thinking, already reacting. And this is what makes the pattern difficult to break, because it happens before you notice. As if something always needs attention, as if something is always unfinished. But over time, something becomes clear. Most things don't deserve your attention. The mind was trained to react. For a long time, reacting quickly helped us survive. Every signal could represent danger. Every stimulus required a response. But today, most of what captures your attention is not a real threat. It's just stimulation, information, opinions, temporary situations, thoughts that appear without warning. Still, the mind reacts, as if everything matters. And this is where the problem begins. Because attention is energy, and when you give attention to everything, your energy becomes scattered, fragmented, unfocused. And what truly matters loses space. And this doesn't happen in a dramatic way. It happens gradually. You respond to something small, then something else, then another. And before you realize it, your mind is involved in multiple things at the same time. Things that don't change your life, but occupy your attention. And that is what creates fatigue. You can see this in simple moments. You check your phone for a few seconds, and suddenly several minutes have passed. A small situation happens, and your mind keeps returning to it. Someone says something, and you replay it internally. None of these things are major, but together, they occupy space, and over time, this accumulation becomes exhausting. Not one big problem, but many small things that you keep continuing. And the more you continue, the more the mind expects to continue. It becomes a pattern, automatic. You don't choose, you react. And when there is no choice, there is no control. Because attention works like a filter. Whatever you continue stays active. Whatever you feed grows stronger. And whatever you repeatedly engage with becomes part of your mental environment. So the question is not what appears. Many people believe they need to control everything they think, to understand every situation, to resolve every internal reaction. But this creates more effort, not more clarity, because trying to control everything keeps the mind active. And an active mind rarely feels calm. It is what you keep allowing to stay. And without control, there is no clarity, but there is a simple shift that changes how the mind operates. You start choosing what to continue, choosing what to engage with, choosing what deserves your attention, And this doesn't mean ignoring everything. It means stopping automatic reactions. It means creating space between what happens and how you respond. And in that space, something changes. You notice a thought, and you don't follow it. A situation appears, and you don't engage. An opinion shows up, and you let it pass. At first, this feels unfamiliar because the mind is used to reacting. It wants to respond, to explain, to stay involved. But over time, the noise decreases, the urgency fades, and the mind begins to slow down. And this leads to something that most people are looking for: clarity. Not because everything changed, but because your attention did. And with clarity comes stability. You become less reactive, less distracted, less overwhelmed, and more intentional. And over time, something else becomes clear. Many things that once felt important lose their intensity, not because they disappeared, but because you stopped feeding them. And what is not fed doesn't grow. It doesn't stay active. It doesn't take space. And this changes everything, because instead of trying to control everything, you start selecting what deserves your attention. And this is where mental strength begins. Not in doing more, but in engaging less. Not in controlling everything, but in choosing better. And over time, something else becomes clear. You don't need to reduce what appears in your mind. You need to reduce what you continue. Because you cannot stop thoughts from arising, but you can stop following them. Because when everything is continued, nothing really ends. There is no pause, no space between one thought and the next, no moment where the mind can reset. And without that reset, the mind stays overloaded, always processing, always reacting, always engaged. And this is where real control begins. Not in controlling everything, but in selecting what deserves continuation. Maybe you don't need more effort. Maybe you need less involvement. Maybe you don't need to manage everything. Maybe you need to stop feeding everything. And when this becomes clear, something shifts. You stop trying to manage everything. You stop trying to respond to everything. And you start becoming more selective, more intentional, more aware of what you allow to stay. And this changes your entire experience. Because instead of being pulled by everything, you begin to direct your attention. Most things don't deserve your attention. And when you realize this, the mind becomes quieter, clearer, more stable. If this made sense to you, pay attention to where your attention is going today. Not to change everything at once, just to notice. And over time, that awareness starts to change how your mind works. Be prosperous from the inside out.